In today's T-Day episode, I'm going to show you guys how to paint two-tone color jigs. This is a very popular way to make your jigs more attractive. Some folks believe that the more they customize the lure so that lure looks a lot different than what other folks are throwing will give them a competitive edge, especially when you guys are fishing in highly pressured waters. In my last video, I showed you guys how you could paint a jig just by heating up the jig on a candle or on fire directly and then dip it into powder paint, and there you have it. Some people have messaged me and told me that they were having issues heating up the jigs because the jig turned black. It has a little carbon buildup, and they were concerned that the carbon buildup may make the integrity of the paint a lot less than what it's supposed to be. There is a way to go around this, and the solution is quite simple. It is the heat gun. So let me show you guys how we do this today. Let's go over the list of materials. You need some paper plate, magazine, or newspaper that you can lay down on a table. This will allow you to easily clean up as well as collect any powder that falls off onto the table and put it back in the bottle. Of course, you need some jigs to paint. You need a plier to hold the jigs. You need some Pro-Tec paint, at least 2 colors. I am doing black and white to imitate the shad color. You need a paper clip for stirring the paint as well as to clean up the eyes. You will need a small paintbrush, which I'll show you what to do with it later. You need a cooling rack to cool down the jig before you transfer it into the oven. And of course, you need the oven to set the paint. Lastly, you need a heat gun, but if you don't have a heat gun, don't worry. A candle will work, and I'll show you how to use it so that you do not turn your jigs black. Alright, the first method I'm going to show you guys is how to paint it with the heat gun. So you want to use a clamp and clamp onto your jig head and start heating the jig. And this heat gun is on high settings, so it's going to heat really quick. And once it's done heating, you got to dip it right into the paint that you have stirred up already and stir it around and lift it up immediately. Careful not to blow right into the bottle of paint. If the jig was not hot enough, you will see that the paint is not in very smooth. You can just take the heat gun and heat the jig back up, and it will melt the paint and everything will smoothen out. This is also a good time to clean your eyelet before you put it on a cooling rack. You also want to make sure you cool down your jig a little bit before you put it on the rack, or as you can see right here, the paint is coming off and hitting my rack. You will need some paint brushes to drop some paint onto your hot jig. You could use smaller brushes than this. The bigger the brush, the more paint it will hold. And once you dip it in, all you do is tap it like that, and paint will fall right onto the jig. Here's an example. See how I dipped the paint with the brush and tap it. See how it just drops on. So the technique is you heat up the jig, and then in one hand you just take the brush, dip it in, and you tap the paint onto the jig. Okay, so now that you have your jig ready for painting a second one, you just want to reheat it. Okay, once you reheat it, you just take your other hand, get the brush, start tapping your paint on top of it. And don't worry if you guys are too slow and it stopped melting. The jig is going to be hot enough where it's going to still stick on top of it. And once you finish adding your paint to where you want it, you put down your brush and then you heat the jig again. I start off heating from the other side first so that I don't blow off all the paint that's still on there. And once it gets hot enough, you can see that the paint will melt and it's going to turn nice and shiny. And this is ready to go into the oven for some baking and hardening. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys an option for those who do not have a heat gun. So the key is you do not want to heat directly on the fire or too close on a fire, because that will give you the carbon. So you want to get it high enough, or you could heat the shank or the little lead that's near the shank, right? So see, I'm not, when you directly on like that, that's no good. So you move it over just a little bit and you get it nice and warm. And again, you're gonna just tap your powder onto the sides that you want, and voila. I missed a spot here, but it's okay. This is just for demonstration purposes. What I'll do is I'll just put the jig over the flame high enough just to get it warm. And again, I don't want to go direct flames on it because that will just turn it black. And then you just add some more, and that's all you have to do. So now I'm just going to transfer everything to the oven and start baking. So you want to set the oven to 350 degrees, and I usually bake most of my small jigs to 15 minutes, but I'm going to set it to 20 minutes because I basically need to heat up the oven right now. I didn't preheat it. So align all your jigs onto the rack. There's only a few today because I am just doing this for demonstration purposes. And then when you finish putting all your jigs in, just close the rack, alright, and let it bake. And then what you want to do next is get back to your table where you have all your stuff laying around, clean it up, because you want to make the wifey happy. You can take the brush and just flick it off right onto the bottle so you get the excess paint back into the bottle. And then what you want to do next is take your plate, or if you had a magazine like I did, you want to take it out and just fold it together, get all the paint together, and then you can just pour it right back into the jar to save. There's not much here, but if you paint 100 jigs for one season, there will be a lot. So this is how you save some of your paint. So now that everything is done baking, you can take the jig out. Be careful that the oven and the jigs might be hot. And as you see here, the two-tone is complete. There is some little paint that got in the eyelet, so you could use one of the eyelet cleaners, or you could use things such as a paper clip. This is actually done a lot better when you first heat up the jig and dip it, and then use a paper clip to clean it out. It can get really hard, and sometimes you can flip the jig around a couple times and then get it cleaned. And there you go, a clean two-tone painted jig. So there you have it, guys. That's how you paint two-tone colors onto your jigs or any other stuff that you may have. And if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if this is the first time you guys watching my videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you guys have any suggestions on what type of videos you want me to make next, feel free to leave me a comment below. Love you guys. Peace out. Check out my 3-color jig. I'm trying to imitate a yellow perch right here, or a peacock bass. It will work for both since it has the same color. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of T-Day. I will try to release another video next Thursday. Peace out.